Joining us here, his Football Morning in America column is always must read. Back here on the show, a colleague from NBC Sports, right here on NBC Sports on Peacock channel on Peacock, is none other than Peter King. How are you, Peter?
Rich, everything is going well. I just voted.
What'd you vote? Oh, you mean for our poll question or the presidential election, Peter?
No, I voted in the election. I voted at Barclays Center this morning.
Oh, you did in Brooklyn?
Only a 7-minute wait. It was very nice.
Well, I mean, you're lucky. As we know, there's 7 hours is something people in this country would be signing up for because of how difficult it's been made to vote in certain parts. So I'm glad you exercised your democratic right, sir, to vote. That's fantastic.
Indeed. Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so who do you vote for in that poll question then? How about that to start us off? Whose weapons would you want? Would you take Chiefs, Bucks, Cardinals, or Seahawks, Peter?
Well, I would take Chiefs, but I'd have a slight asterisk there.
Okay.
And the slight asterisk is just the fact that even though I would vote for the Chiefs, I would also be concerned about the health of those weapons because they have guys who are speedsters and who are not built like DK Metcalf. And the amazing thing about the play last night is DK Metcalf is built like a tight end, and on some teams might even be scouted as such, but he also runs a 4.34 40, and so I would take Kansas City, but I wouldn't necessarily go shouting to the moon about it. I think you could make a case for almost all of that. I don't know that you could make a case for the running back in Seattle compared to the other ones, but all those places have good skill positions.
They sure do. Let's start, I guess, with the Steelers, Peter, since they're the lone remaining undefeated team now that Arizona did pull off that win late last night. The Steelers are going to be taking the Ravens on next. Just one great hit after another in the AFC. How do you see the Steelers setting up for a long run potentially to Tampa right now, Peter?
Well, the interesting thing, and I wrote about this today, is that the difference between Pittsburgh and almost every other team is they have probably, I might call them 5 game changers on offense. And, Roethlisberger, Connor, and 3 of their receivers. And then they've got at least 4 on defense that could make a huge play in any game. And so, I think Pittsburgh has the depth at impact positions on both sides of the ball that very, very few teams in the NFL have right now. And I really like Pittsburgh.
And yet Tennessee almost pulled it off again. I mean, they're just...
Well, Tennessee, Tennessee is right in the same league with Pittsburgh. I mean, their defensive playmakers are not as famous, and their defense is not as good as Pittsburgh's, but it's not far away from Pittsburgh's. And, to me, I think that, what we saw yesterday is that for a good chunk of the game, they took Derrick Henry and his impact away from the game, especially in the first half. And so, when they do that, but then again, you saw Ryan Tannehill on the sort of simple cross, to A.J. Brown. They basically, that play, and I talked to T.J. Watt about this last night, he goes, that play kept them in the game for the entire second half. Because, you have to answer plays like that. And the Steelers were great in the first half offensively. It's interesting, Rich. I try to talk. I knew I wanted to write something about that game, so I really wanted to talk to Ben Roethlisberger after the game. And I didn't know whether I was going to or not. But after the game, I was told, hey, listen, he's a little bit ticked off right now, even though they won. So, we'll try to get you somebody else. And I ended up getting Watt. But the interesting thing about that is I applaud Roethlisberger for being ticked off, because his throw that was intercepted in the end zone with 2:40 to go, gave the Titans that last chance. And if Gostkowski hits it, who knows what happens in overtime.
Well, at least he's consistent, Peter, because the first post-game show we ever had on NFL Network at a Super Bowl, writ large. I mean, our first Super Bowl that we covered, first couple, we didn't get the quarterback. Tom Brady were the first 2 years in the Patriots. But we were also still young, though. But the Super Bowl 40, we were there, full force, and we'd been on the air a couple of years, and we thought maybe this is the year we get the quarterback. As you know, Hines Ward was the MVP of that Super Bowl. Roethlisberger didn't have a very good game. He didn't want to come out. He didn't want to talk. So, it was also Jerome Bettis's, going away party. But Roethlisberger didn't show that night because it's consistent. If he's saying that then, it's because he was saying that, yesterday, too.
I just think, and look, here's the whole thing. I never, ever get upset if guys either they don't want to talk to me or they only want to do their group thing and don't want to do any individuals, whatever. It's absolutely, totally their choice. I don't have any problem with it whatsoever because they don't owe me anything. But it's always good, especially when, say, that person had a major role in that game to be able to talk to him. Like I talked to Garoppolo last night before they got on the plane to go back, and it was really insightful because, a guy like Garoppolo in New England, that was the kind of game that you could say, well, just another game. It wasn't just another game. It never will be just another game. He is incredibly grateful to everybody in New England for what happened to him. Josh McDaniels, Bill Belichick, of course, even Brady, although everybody thinks that they've got this kind of icy relationship. I don't think they're close, but he's grateful to Brady. It's like Aaron Rodgers is grateful to Favre, even though they weren't close friends, and for a while maybe he wasn't grateful, but now he realizes that was part of his football life, and he's grateful because he saw how a great player was great. Same thing with Garoppolo.
And next up for Seattle is San Francisco, who may be without Deebo Samuel because he hurt his hamstring late in that win. But, they're down to, their fourth string running back right now, and Deebo has been in and out. It just seems, though, that the Niners are hitting a stride on offense right now. Jimmy G does seem locked in, and boy, did with Ayuk and Kittle, and when Deebo is healthy, and all of their running backs, they arrive with intent. They are big, and they just slash, and they, their coach gets them right on the right angle, it seems, at the right time to attack a defense. It looks like they're clicking right now. Peter, would you agree?
Remember the old days, Rich, back in the 90s and, very early this century when Denver would have all these anonymous running backs gain 1,000 yards.
Is it a Shanahan thing? It's a Shanahan
Terrell
thing?
Davis. Yeah, Shanahan. But the reason I bring that up is that Kyle Shanahan has his dad's running backs coach, Bobby Turner, who, hey, when Mike Shanahan hired Bobby Turner, Kyle was a sophomore in high school and used to hang around the facility on weekends. So, imagine that the high school kid is now the coach, and the guy who taught Olandis Gary and Terrell Davis,
Mike Anderson,
who scouted him, and Mike Anderson. There were, I think, 5 guys drafted either low or who were free agents in Denver who went on to gain 1,000 yards. But be that as it may, so that's the reason why I look at the San Francisco 49ers and I say, oh, you got running back injuries? Give me JaMychal Hasty this Sunday. They'll be fine. And it was interesting. Garoppolo, I mentioned to Garoppolo how impressed I was with their running game. And he goes, we're way ahead. And like in the last 5 minutes of the game, Bobby Turner is on the sideline screaming at JaMychal Hasty. It's like it was a playoff game, and it was still up for grabs. But he said Bobby Turner is such a great coach because those guys are running for their lives. I thought it was a really good point by Garoppolo.
Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's the Patriots' answer right now? I mean, just hope that Cam from the first 2 weeks shows up.
You just got to take it, Rich. This is going to be a bad year. And, whereas no one puts the black, the black crepe paper, the funeral crepe paper out for the Jets or the Giants because everybody expected it. It's hard to feel bad for the New England Patriots because they're having their first bad year in the last couple centuries. It happens to everybody, and it's going to happen to anybody. It could happen to anybody any year. The Patriots just had the gift of Tom Brady for 19 years. But, Rich, I maintain we saw this coming in the second half of last season when the New England Patriots, after Halloween, had a worse record than the Miami Dolphins. And you could just see it. You could see it on the night they lost to Tennessee in the wild card game. 0 separation, 0 weaponry. And what did the Patriots do in the offseason? They cut Mohamed Sanu and drafted 2 tight ends in the 3rd round. I mean, it's almost like look, as great as Bill Belichick is, and clearly he's one of the best coaches in any sport ever, he's got a little bit of a blind spot about his skill position players. He just happens to think that they can figure it out at skill positions. And the fact is, you better have, in today's football, you better be able to find yourself a Jefferson, a Metcalf. I'm talking a young impact receiver. And the Patriots just simply don't have one. Look, they tried with, N'Keal Harry, and maybe it's too early to throw him out with the recycling, but he certainly hasn't done it so far.
Well, I guess at least they have Bill, and if the Cam of the first 3 weeks shows up, and next week, with the Bills ready to absolutely stomp their guts out in the post-Brady era, that would be a good time for him to reappear. At least there's that for New England.
I would agree, Rich, but I would also say that, let's look at one other factor here. Let's look at the last couple of times we have seen, the Buffalo quarterback play and say, now, wait a minute. Did we put Josh Allen among the greats of the game a little bit too early? After 1 month of the season, right, he looked like he absolutely unequivocally was justifiably an MVP candidate. And, he hasn't been as accurate, and he hasn't been the playmaker the last couple of weeks that he certainly was early.
Well, the reason why I
agree that Buffalo ought to win this game, but I'm a little bit, my eyebrows are raised at Josh Allen right now.
Right, yeah, no doubt. And the reason why I brought that up, though, was to set up my last question for you in the couple minutes I have left. Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show is, at least Bill's there, and Cam could be returning in the manner in which we saw the first few weeks. What are the answers for the Cowboys right now? It seems like they are done. McCarthy looks like a shell of the guy who won the Super Bowl in the Cowboys' home building. I'm only calling it like I see it right now. It seems like nobody is raising their game.
I agree, Rich.
What are they doing?
I agree. It really would worry me, not just for this year, but long term, especially when you start getting players sniping at the coach. You know what? I mean, look, I named Ezekiel Elliot as one of my goats of the week this week. One of the reasons I did for the full week, the 2 fumbles in the first half against Arizona, the horrible job he did on one of his blitz pickups yesterday, where he looked totally disinterested in blocking a blitzing Washington linebacker. He can say whatever he wants but Ezekiel Elliot looks, and the word I would use after watching a lot of that game, Ezekiel Elliot looks totally disinterested. Whereas JaMychal Hasty, nobody knows who he is, but he runs the ball every carry like his life depends on it. Ezekiel Elliott does not look like he's running particularly hard or, doing anything in terms of blitz pickup or blocking that is helping his team. And I think DeMarcus Lawrence said it after the game last night. We have to play harder. That's the only solution for the Cowboys right now. And they have a bad offensive line because 4/5 of a great offensive line as of April 1st are all gone. And right now when you look at that offensive line, that is a AAA offensive line. It's not good, and it's hard to blame Mike McCarthy for an offensive line that's not good. It's hard to blame him for Prescott getting hurt. And again, I do understand that you should blame Mike McCarthy for not having the sort of commanding presence early on that would stop his players from yapping that, about how we don't like how we're being coached. So there's enough blame to go around, but I think it's a unique situation in Dallas.
Peter, thanks for the time. Always appreciate you taking me up on a call into this show. You're the best. Thank you.
Okay, Rich, thank you. Have a good day.
That's Peter King. Check out his column, NBCSports.com, Pro Football Talk website as well. Football Morning in America. Hey, Cowboys might be one loss away from being sellers. Why not? Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.